Poor quality goods, overpopulation, and primitive customs. These are the associations that still come to mind for many people when they hear about China. However, these stereotypical views have long ceased to be the calling card of the Middle Kingdom. In recent years, the authorities and residents of this vast country have done tremendous work. As a result, modern China has not only emerged from the ranks of struggling nations, but has also earned a well-deserved place among the world's leaders. China's history spans many thousands of years, during which the country has experienced numerous ups and downs. However, the recent period has truly been a golden era for China. The number of achievements it has made in recent years is unparalleled. Let's take a look at 15 of the most impressive achievements of our eastern neighbor over the past 10 years. China's vast population needs quality food every day. For the Chinese Communist Party, food security is priority number one. Being dependent on imports means being vulnerable. Therefore, the country's authorities have set a goal to significantly increase the efficiency of domestic agriculture. This is why much attention in China is given to research in agricultural crop biology. Today's successes of the Chinese in plant cultivation are astonishing. Research is conducted across the country, and the Chinese Academy of Sciences, QAS, has an entire wall with patents and samples of genetically modified seeds obtained in recent years. For example, Chinese scientists have managed to develop wheat with longer and heavier grains by removing a specific gene. They have also found ways to increase corn yield by 10% and adapt sorghum and millet to highly saline soil. These innovations are already actively used in practice. For instance, in the Guizhou province, they have already harvested a second crop of genetically modified rice with giant grains. In 2019, The Economist posed the question, could China ever become a scientific superpower? With a hint of skepticism, but now there is no doubt. The answer can only be yes. The country conducts a record number of high-level scientific research studies. Their value to global science is so significant that their results are actively discussed and cited in the international scientific community. Western colleagues are increasingly referring to Chinese scientists. In 2003, the number of such publications in the US was 20 times higher than in China, and in 2013 it was 4 times higher. But by 2022, China had surpassed not only the US but also Europe in terms of citations. Today, China is ranked first in the Nature Index. This means that research by Chinese scientists is most frequently mentioned in articles published in the most prestigious international scientific journals. 6 universities in the Middle Kingdom have made it into the top 10 best in the world, for example, Shanghai and Beijing, pushing Harvard and Cambridge out of this list. We will return to describing the most impressive achievements of China, an amazing and contradictory Eastern country that has bordered us for centuries, in just a few seconds. In the meantime, we ask you to subscribe to our channel and click the bell icon. This way, you can always stay up to date with our latest videos. A disease like diabetes is often called the scourge of our time by doctors. It is an incurable condition, with the only treatment being a lifelong intake of insulin. At least, that was the case until recently. In 2021, Chinese doctors made history by creating and transplanting artificial pancreatic cells into a patient with a 25-year history of diabetes. After this innovative procedure, the 59-year-old patient completely stopped taking insulin and other diabetes medications. Chinese scientists have figured out how to use a person's own stem cells to grow tissues not only for the pancreas, but also for other organs, including the brain. The resulting material can be implanted in a patient, potentially curing them of previously considered incurable and complex diseases. In the case of type 2 diabetics, the artificially grown pancreatic cells start producing insulin, which no longer needs to be obtained externally. This frees the person from injections, allowing them to live a normal, healthy life. This revolutionary technology from China is still in the testing phase, but there is no doubt that it will find widespread application. Chinese electric vehicles are now considered undisputed leaders in the global market, and they are also in high demand domestically. The unprecedented increase in the production of NEVs, eco-friendly vehicles powered by alternative energy sources over just 10 years is both gratifying and impressive. It is clear that China has acquired the resources and technologies to develop this promising sector. To date, it has become the flagship of the Middle Kingdom's automotive industry. 20 years ago, there were only a few electric cars in China, but since 2014, production has increased rapidly, proportionally raising demand and sales. The figure of 78.5 thousand in 2014 has turned into 9.5 million by 2024. This represents a 126-fold increase. Today, 60% of consumers choose Chinese NEV vehicles according to surveys. Over the past 12 months, the export of goods in this category has increased by 77.6%. Chinese doctors have successfully completed an experiment to transplant an artificially grown cornea to a patient, giving hope to tens of millions of people to overcome blindness. In the past, transplants required donor organs, which were catastrophically scarce. Now, Chinese doctors plan to replicate their success with a fully synthesized heart. The test tube cornea is a relatively inexpensive alternative, costing around $3,000. Growing the tissue itself is not very difficult for scientists. The challenge was getting the artificial endothelial cells, one of the three main layers, to regenerate. Chinese scientists managed to implant a cancer gene into it, which acted as a stimulant. 90% of the eye's organ is stroma, which was artificially obtained from human collagen. The technology is undergoing clinical trials, although the first surgery has already been successfully completed. The prospects for applying the method are quite obvious. In the future, China plans to grow up to 200,000 artificial organs per year. Another medical innovation in the pipeline is the growth of male genital implants from connective tissue, a project being worked on by scientists at the South China University of Technology. The term brain drain is familiar to everyone. Many talented Russian specialists have left the country at different times for better opportunities. China also faced this problem until recently, but significant government investments helped solve it. In 2010, China launched the state program 1,000 Young Talents, under which Chinese scientists under the age of 40 who returned to their homeland were awarded up to 500,000 yuan, approximately $150,000. They could also receive up to 3 million yuan to open their own laboratory. The incentive proved effective. Over the past 10 years, more than 15% of young scientists with high productivity levels have returned to the country. With access to a large volume of resources, financial, laboratory, and labor in China, they have published 2.5 times more scientific papers in just a few years than their Western colleagues. China's space program has rapidly surpassed the American one in just a few years. In the near future, a joint mission with Russia to the moon is being prepared, while more immediate frontiers are actively being explored. In 2023, China announced the launch of its own space station with a large laboratory, Tiangong. Several teams of Chinese astronauts have already lived there for extended periods. The conditions differ from the ISS, providing researchers with unique experiences. On the station, astronauts can stand while being strapped to the floor, sleep in vertical sleeping bags, and heat food in a microwave. Tiangong boasts an extensive research complex that allows for the study of the properties of liquids and various materials, biological samples, environmental factors, and more. Vegetables and fruit crops are successfully grown on board, and in their free time, the crew engages in physical exercise and experiments with cooking in the unique conditions. China was responsible for the emergence and spread of the deadly coronavirus from its territory. However, this same country became the global leader in combating it. China sent the largest number of vaccines, 1.2 billion doses, to various countries. Medications were delivered to over 120 countries most affected by the pandemic and also donated to international health organizations. China's contribution accounted for about 30% of the total international volume of COVID-19 vaccines. Most of the vaccines were sent to countries that could not afford to purchase them in sufficient quantities. Chinese vaccines helped form global immunity to COVID, saved many lives, and strengthened the fight against the pandemic that engulfed the planet. 1 billion doses were sent to the African continent, with 600 million of them distributed for free. This measure allowed more than 60% of the population to be vaccinated. An additional 150 million free doses were supplied to ASEAN countries. One of the priority expenditures of China's state treasury is scientific research. As early as 2019, The Economist noted that the country boasts an impressive array of supercomputers and even has its own dark energy detector. China is home to the largest radio telescope with a fixed dish in the world. Today, the Chinese also have a highly accurate high-energy cosmic ray detector and one of the most sensitive neutrino particle detectors globally. In the near future, they plan to create the strongest stationary magnetic field, which will help uncover the properties of various materials. Nico McCarthy, a former employee of the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, was simply amazed by the impressive equipment installed in one of China's biological laboratories and how much more extensive it was compared to the US. The country also has its own Silicon Valley, the Shenzhen Institute of Advanced Technology. There will be no more poverty in China. This was decreed by Chairman Xi Jinping in February of this year. It must be completely eradicated in the near future. This is not just an empty slogan, but a reminder that the work has been ongoing and will continue to intensify. The fight against poverty began 40 years ago and has accelerated particularly in the last decade. Over 100 million rural families have been lifted out of absolute poverty. To put it in perspective, one person was lifted out of poverty every 2 seconds. In China, poverty is defined as an income below 2,300 yuan. Overcoming this issue involves not only raising the material standard of living, but also providing access to healthcare and education, and ensuring housing for people. Xi Jinping stated that all these needs are largely met today, but there is no time to rest on these laurels. Jobs must be provided for people, and their children must receive quality professional education. The government needs to pay attention not only to the economy, but also to the social sector. All segments of the population should benefit from the country's economic development. The income gap must be eliminated, and all regions of China should be on the same level. China ranks second only to the US in terms of total computing power and has no intention of stopping there. One of the government's goals is to close the gap with the leader. To achieve this, a 3-year plan for the implementation of neural networks has been created. In recent years, Beijing has gained the status of not only a Chinese, but also a global center for the development of advanced digital technologies. Nearly half of the world's largest linguistic models, or speaking neural networks, were created here. Moreover, Beijing currently employs the most specialists in artificial intelligence research. The Chinese are well aware of the dangers posed by uncontrolled neural networks and are taking all necessary security measures, regulated at the governmental level. For example, a directive from the very top mandated the labeling of content created by artificial intelligence. Meanwhile, the US is still considering the proposal to test artificial intelligence for safety. Chinese scientists recently called on their colleagues to allocate 30% of the funds for neural network development to address their safety for humanity. At the governmental level, a cooperation program with the US, Japan, and South Korea has been launched. The accuracy of meteorologists' forecasts has long been a subject of jokes worldwide. It is evident that old methods of weather prediction are outdated and new ones are being developed in China. Specifically, Huawei Cloud announced the involvement of artificial intelligence in the field. Scientists have created the Pangu weather model, which can make weather forecasts faster and more accurately than anyone else. The speed of forecasting with the help of artificial intelligence increases by 10,000 times. Results can be obtained in just a few seconds. The three-dimensional neural network learns, analyzes old and incoming data, which constantly improves accuracy. In moments, it transmits information about temperature, pressure, atmospheric humidity, and wind speed. Thanks to the rapid and accurate prediction of weather changes, people can be warned in advance about approaching typhoons, tsunamis, and other large-scale disasters. The Pangu weather system has already proven itself in action. In May 2023, it predicted the arrival of Typhoon Mawar, the strongest tropical cyclone, 5 days in advance. As we know, the deadly COVID virus first appeared in China, making it the most affected country. However, it is both surprising and admirable how quickly China has recovered from such a blow. This recovery includes even the most pandemic-vulnerable sector, tourism. Just 2 years later, the country reopened. For example, the flow of tourists from China to Russia by early 2024 increased by almost 200%. Russians are increasingly buying tours to the neighboring country, attracted by its unique culture and natural beauty. China has its own unique exotic appeal that attracts millions of tourists from around the world, and this tourism flow brings substantial income. According to WTTC, the World Travel and Tourism Council, the Chinese tourism sector earned 12.62 trillion yuan, or $1.7 trillion last year. Today, 10.6% of the Chinese population is employed in this sector. 2024 has been declared the Year of Green Technologies in China. By 2030, the country plans to significantly reduce harmful emissions into the atmosphere, and by 2060, it aims to become the most environmentally friendly nation in the world. It is planned that in 40 years, China will no longer be a source of greenhouse gases that contribute to global warming. The Chinese are not only developing and implementing advanced environmental technologies domestically, but also sharing them with other countries. This was announced at a meeting between Premier Li Qiang and American climate specialist John Kerry. The two sides agreed to reduce coal use for power plants, decrease deforestation, and cut methane emissions. To achieve this, new, clean technologies developed by Chinese engineers will be implemented in both countries. For instance, they have developed biodiesel fuel with 40% biomass content, which is more energy efficient and leaves behind less carbon dioxide. Biodiesel, based on biological fats and byproducts of oil refining, replaces diesel fuel, offering better lubricating and anti-corrosive properties. Vehicles not only function efficiently, but ultimately last significantly longer. Experts from the British Centre for Economics and Business Research are confident that China will become the leader in the ranking of the world's largest economies by 2037. This could have happened earlier if not for the pandemic and problems in the national real estate market. The Chinese economic miracle is not slowing down, but is instead gaining momentum, while the current world leader, America, is only increasing its national debt and spending huge sums on political intrigues. Before the pandemic, China's GDP growth was 8 to 10% per year, but after 2019, it fell to 5%, although many countries can only dream of such a figure. The Chinese have clearly demonstrated that it is possible to increase the economy 90 times in 30 years, overtaking many developed countries and coming close to the leaders. The yuan today has every chance of becoming a new reserve currency alongside the dollar and the euro. As we can see, China is rapidly evolving from a country of counterfeit goods and poverty into a modern superpower, advancing with a course of science and creation. The 15 leading achievements of China that we described are just a small part of what is already becoming a reality today. Subscribe to our channel and click the bell icon to continue exploring the amazing and wonderful world around us.